Hello everybody. Hi, my name is Jo Greene and I am a school gardening educator based here in the Fort Worth area of North Texas. I am so delighted and so excited to have been invited to present at this year's Dig Deep conference for growers, and I am going to be talking about what I do in the area for school gardening. For the keen-eared of you, I am not from Texas. I'm actually from the United Kingdom. I'm from England and moved here about 5 years ago with my family. About 4 years ago, I was invited to help out at a couple of different schools, helping to maintain school gardens, actually helping one school to build a school garden, and then asking to roll out a garden programme, then helping and training teachers, also taking the curriculum into the garden and helping take the garden and putting it into the curriculum as well. So yeah, I'm such a keen gardener. I'm personally a super keen gardener, particularly organic gardening. In the United Kingdom, I was a very keen gardener, quite involved in the allotment community gardening scene over there. I went back to university about 12 years ago and got my certification with the Royal Horticultural Society. So I put some theory and some science and some botany behind my everyday lifelong practice, if you like, and I really enjoyed doing that. I was also involved in school gardens over there. I am super passionate. I'm super passionate about gardening, but I'm really passionate about getting children in the garden and gardening with the youth. I think there's never been a more poignant time, or there's never been a time that it's been more evident how the outdoors and growing and being involved in that environment is for the children's well-being and mental health. I think this time of COVID has really highlighted how important it is to be out, and I'm so excited to see that people have been out and starting to grow again and taking a real interest and a real joy and real lifeline that the outdoors can be. So really, I really try to work hard to up the profile of school gardenings with school administrators, with PTAs, with the people who make the decisions, particularly with budgets, because the area of a school garden is one that is always, more often than not, at the very bottom of the pile when it comes to consideration for any kind of financing or any kind of really serious time within a timetable or within the schedule, really. So being here today and talking to you, I would like you to reach out if you are a school gardener, and let's kind of come together as a network, and we can help each other, we can introduce each other, we can kind of share resources and as well, and really try to elevate and raise the subject of school gardening to be a very credible and to be a real genuine prospect in the curriculum today at schools. So I really do hope that you enjoy the presentation, and thank you again so much for choosing it. And like I say, I'd really love to hear from you, whether you're a school gardener or not really. So yeah, so enjoy. Thank you. Hi. So, just want to say, before we start looking at the other two gardens, is that you do not have to have at all a purpose-built, fancy, all singing, all dancing, fabulous garden to get started with gardening. Simple as a milk carton, a milk jug cut up, one per kid, seeds in the classroom on the windowsill. If you have a fence, pop it on the fence outside, let it grow, and the child can take it home or eat it at lunch. Absolutely easy peasy. Some other examples here, just some use old crates. These felt planter bags are fantastic, work perfectly on concrete. Just outside a classroom door, that's all it has to be. Or on your school grounds, if you have any beds that aren't being used, use existing landscaping beds. This one was covered in grass, absolutely covered in grass, so we got out all the grass and just planted it up as a squash bed. Likewise, all around this campus, we've tucked in watermelons in all the existing landscaping. So if you've got a bed that's already there, it's a bit scraggly looking, full of weeds, use it and grow some veggies for that season. You do not need to have a full-on school garden. So here we are. This is the Montessori School of Fort Worth on East Clayton Road here in Fort Worth, and this is one of the areas of their school garden. Now, they wanted a school garden, and we started it in September of 2019. the dynamic and the kind of direction that they wanted the school garden to go was to be totally student-led. Student plans, student pursued, student built, student everything, okay? So they didn't have a time frame, there wasn't a kind of we need to have this done by Christmas or anything like that. It was just going to be this mindful process of building it. And so it was. Students spent a great deal of time reaching out to businesses, reaching out to the PTA, and we spent a lot of time going out to kind of organisations in the Fort Worth area, seeing what kind of assistance we could get as well. So we were lucky enough around Christmas time to be given and to have these beds donated to us. This is a composite plastic, a modular raised bed system, which is absolutely fantastic. I love them as a material to work with. And the middle school students actually built this area, they planned it all. Previously the area was just a grassy, dirty kind of area where all the trash cans were kept actually for the school area, so we adopted that. We decided, we kind of studied the way that the light came round as well, and I thought that this would be a good area. So here we go, yeah, the first area of the school garden here. Right, so here we are on the second area of the garden that we identified. Again, this was just a grassy area, it was all overgrown, and we decided to adopt this because it is full sunshine. This gets full sunshine as well. So students identified this as a perfect area as well. So again, use those raised beds to just put down, and again the chipping for the path areas as well. I've kind of gardened this on my own since March, and I was donated quite a lot of plants, so I ended up planting it up and just getting some stuff in there. So hopefully if the kids are coming back, then they will, you know, get to see something growing in it as well. The fence here, this is where, when I was talking about the milk jug, before we had any of this, before it was just an idea, it was just in the planning stages, the kids were, you know, reaching out to businesses as well, is that we use this as vertical growing, and most of the students had one of these little lettuce planters that they planted in the classroom and then they hung on the wall. This is now going to be a massive loofah, a loofah grower. A loofah is going to have the loofah plants that grow up along there, and we're going to grow our own sponges. So yeah, and another way about using existing landscape as well, this is just an area between two paths. It's like what you can see part of it here, and we decided to adopt this and fill this with soil, and this is going to be a lettuce for lunch bed. So we're going to continuously, successionally sow. So every couple of weeks we're going to do another couple of lines, another couple of rows of lettuce, and the lettuce is actually going to be used for lunch times here as well. So this is going to be our lettuce for lunch bed. We didn't need anything else apart from soil put in it as well. We were just using existing landscapes to do that with. So here we are, and this is the kind of third area that the students were kind of a little bit unsure about because of the actual shade of it as well. So the idea was, from our middle school learners, was to kind of have it as a recycled area. So everything here is a temporary thing. So we've got tires, we've got the inside of tires, we've had a bit of wind, so it's kind of blown a lot of things around, but the wheelbarrow over there we had as a radish bed for a while, and then these straw bales were from people's front porches for Halloween and for the fall, so we asked for donations for those. So we decided to plant this up and see how it does, and it hasn't done as well. The kids were right, they thought it was going to be a little bit too shaded for anything good to be here, but that's okay because we looked at sustainability, we looked at using and reusing materials as well. So it was an excellent exercise, that, and fortuitously we found out that it isn't going to be that great as a growing area anyway. But it was kind of fun doing it, and it was fun composting down the inside of the straw bales, and so we could grow. We've got actually a lot of jalapeno peppers that are doing okay there as well. But I think that after this season we can kind of clear this out, and then this can just grow over again, and we'll think about what else to do with this area here. So yeah, good, nothing lost. Hi, so welcome to the weekday school here at UCC, University Christian Church on South University Drive in Fort Worth. This garden is an established children's garden, and it's been a children's garden for over 10 years. Yes, it's very much developed over its years into what it is today. So I'd like to give you a little tour and show you round. Okay. So the garden is just under 500 square feet, which it doesn't feel absolutely huge at all, and we don't have a great deal of planting bed, but it's definitely big enough, and it's big enough for what we plan to do here. Maybe you can't see this, but how it's set out, but this was designed so the planting beds in the middle are in the shape of a butterfly, which is absolutely wonderful. So the emphasis on this garden and the purpose and the direction that the school wanted the garden to have was it to be a sensory garden, a garden for exploration, a garden for creativity, a garden for just to kind of your senses for smell and for touch as well, and for just being outside. And I think they certainly nailed that there. Okay, so things like we've got the lamb's ear here, we've got our tyres that we installed, and they have the herbs in it, and we like to have tea tasting, we like to test the herbs, we like to taste them, the teachers like to take them in and cook with them. It's wonderful. And in terms of sensory, when these get watered, the smell of it is absolutely fantastic. Lamb's ear, incredibly tactile. Hey Theo, what are you up to?
Oh, hello.
Hi.
So I'm going to measure this pumpkin. I'm going to measure the circumference, and then I'm going to take its weight, and then using all of that, I'm going to make a chart, and we're going to record its growth.
And record its growth. That's fantastic. All right, you carry on. Okay, so here we go as we walk around. So this is the main bulk of the middle of the garden, and we walk down here and we have this wonderful planting arch, which last year had an absolute ton of loofahs on it, and it actually brought the arch down. Everyone was like, oh no, the arch is broken, and I was absolutely delighted because 4 plants yielded over 60 loofahs, so that was absolutely fantastic. This year we're going to grow some beans up there as well. So here we've kept a lot of the soil bare because we are, well, and just not particularly planted up at the moment because we've got hopefully the kids coming back in the fall. We've had nobody in since March, so we are just biding our time until we come back and we can hopefully plant up a fall garden. I love the sunflowers. I love the book called The Sunflower House by Eve Bunting, and this is my inspiration for having let the sunflowers go like this and create this kind of room and an area of different kind of little compartments to the garden. We had this monstrous sunflower that grew last year, and we let it tumble over, and we let the seeds kind of take root in the ground, and this is what we've ended up with. So when the kids can come in, there's this real kind of this real magical kind of air to these parts of the garden as you go around. So I'm really looking forward to reading that book and for the kids' imaginations to go wild. Now this seems really quite a lovely kind of extravagance to leave a bed empty, and those of you will recognize this keyhole bed, but it really is such a luxury to have a bed. It doesn't have to be this one, it can be at various different places in your garden perhaps, but do consider having a bed that is just used as a digging bed for the whole season. It's just wonderful. This is the perfect height for the kids to stand at, and over the season we'll bury things. There are seeds in there. Sometimes we bury lots of different items. We look at the bugs in there, the magnifiers come out, and we really do. So kind of a bit of an extravagance if we don't have a massive amount of kind of gardening space, but hey, it's really worth it as an activity in itself. So yeah, so this is round to the rest of the garden here. Coming past, we've got some pumpkins and some squashes, we've got some Brussels sprouts at the very end, and here we've got this. And I think if you are considering a school garden, or if you don't have this, I would highly recommend putting in a seating area. We've got these really lovely benches, but you don't have to wait until you've got gorgeous benches, or anything like that. We just had these painted tyres, and we put some cushions on the top of it, and And we used those for quite a few years actually, until we managed to kind of get some funds. I think the PTA bought these benches for us in the garden. It's wonderful. But a seating area in a quadrangle. It's a perfect start to the beginning of sessions and to the end of sessions. It's just wonderful. And here as well, talking about the sensory, that idea of the play and the investigation and adventure in the garden. Here we have a musical wall that was built about 3 or 4 years ago by an Eagle Scout. Actually, it was this Eagle Scout project. So lots of different pots and pans fixed to the wall, and this come along and they use wooden spoons to bang it and make the music. It's wonderful. Okay, so here we are, the children's garden at the weekday school here at UCC over University Drive in Fort Worth. So our users on the garden are very young, so we do try to keep the rules for safety and rules for the garden as simple as possible. Using pictures is helpful, so try not to trep on the plants, stay to the paths, don't pick things, ask before you can pick things, don't taste things, ask before you can taste things, that kind of thing. But really we are a small user, a young user garden, so if things do get trodden upon or things do get picked by mistake, it really isn't the end of the world. We just can't be too precious about it as well. And that's what it's about exploration. The one thing they do know from day one is about diatomaceous earth. Now, we sometimes have a problem with fire ants, as does I think Texas is built on a fire ant mound as well. So I try my best to keep it down with using dried molasses. Gardening organically certainly helps, but mounds do crop up from time to time. So I like to take the diatomaceous earth, sprinkle it on the ground, and if a child sees that area right the way from day one, lesson one, they know that if they see that, do not go there, do not walk there, and do not touch it. Hi. Here we are on the working side of the garden, here where the children generally don't come, where we have our compost, we keep our tools, and the garden shed. Sometimes we might have activities in here, but usually it's off. So we're quite well known here at the weekday school at UCC for composting. Children, the classrooms, the teachers collect coffee grounds, tea bags, leftover things from lunch, and they generally bring them out here to the compost area. If they don't bring them outside, then we have wormeries in our classrooms. So we've got one here which is this worm factory, which is really quite posh, but it doesn't have to be. Anything just as good as a Rubbermaid tub with a lid and some breathing holes is fine. So inside goes some shredded up newspaper, some composting worms, some vermiculture worms, and just some leftover fruits and vegetables, raw ones, tea bags and coffee grounds from the teacher's lounge is perfect. We do have an event once a year where we ask any parents that they could bring in their old pumpkins, their old Halloween pumpkins. This year we got well over 200 of them, and the kids we spend a week doing a composting event, which is fantastic, and the kids bash up the pumpkins and we layer them. People bring in leaves, and we bring in coffee grounds from coffee shops, we bring in manure from the stables, people bring chicken poop. We have a great week-long event, and we build up the compost bin layer by layer, which is fantastic. From that, the activities that come about is that the children take the temperature every day for a week, and then we also monitor how quickly it breaks down, and we might turn it over. We might look for the bugs and the microorganisms that are in it. The activities from compost is just fantastic, and the fact that we can include the community and we can include our neighbourhood and we can include the church and everybody inside it is just wonderful. So I have mentioned before that we do struggle for space on the garden, so we use these felt planters very regularly. So we definitely do our potato project in them. So each building has their own potato planter, so they sprout inside and then they come out and they plant them up, and then they can visit with them and see their progress. But we use these felt planters a lot. So the potato planters, we might have about 15 or 16 out in the garden during that project as well. And over here we've got some, and these have got carrots.
So we use them a great deal. It also helps to identify maybe just a class project instead of it just being in the garden for general. This is our wonderful peach tree. We have this glorious peach tree, and it yields so many delicious peaches, it's insane. Yeah, and also under the peach tree we just have the most wonderful circle time, story time, and some of our younger years like to come out here and have their snack. It's just glorious.
So sometimes the garden sessions have to move inside because of the weather, temperature, who knows what. Anyway, sometimes it's forecast and sometimes it isn't. So I like to have a tub full of activities that I can take inside, and I like to have this in the back of my car, but also I like to have this available to a school, so it's in a cupboard or so easily accessible. So if a teacher wants to look for an activity, maybe they've been rained out of their garden session to do that. So I do like to have everything to start seeds in the classroom. Easy to do, and then they can stay on a windowsill and they can until they germinate. I also like to do seed saving, so I'll always have things that have come and have dried off. This is a loofah, and we always have the brown paper sacks and collecting seed like that. So also I'll quite often have onions, and we'll have some carrots, all those kind of things that can be saved. I like to have lots of these in, which are the old juice milk cartons that can be cut up and used for seed markers. So they're great, put those in there as well, and really useful to have those. I also like to have things like rooted vegetables that have sprouted, and look at that process. So we've got some potatoes here and some ginger here, and we look at that. So most schools I go to, we do a potato project where we chip them inside and then they move outside. Either it can just easily done in a planter outside, a plant pot, or they can go into the ground as well. And we've got here the information about that, the life cycle. I really enjoy old seed catalogues. They're fantastic as well for really younger ones. Can use scissors and practice their scissor skills and doing that as well. Older ones can start to make charts, start to make kind of like seed planting calendars, that kind of thing, using the pictures from seed catalogues. I mean, just absolutely a lot available to do with that. I really like to have books, all the gardening books, lots of kind of fiction books, books for younger ones, some fact books as well, and most of these can be applied and read to support any of the activities that we do here. If you do have some advanced warning about the weather and you know you're going to be inside and you have the option, then using the produce to cook, and it doesn't have to be, you know, a kind of full-on meal or something like that, but just making like rosemary and lemon salt, something like that, using herbs that you have, and then some jars and putting it in there as well. So maybe if you could try some pickling, something like that, depending. If not, then it might be nice to do a food testing session. So if you have advance notice, going into a supermarket and getting, say, more tropical fruits and vegetables that we can't grow here, discuss why we can't, and then actually students can, you know, did they like it? Did they like the look of it? How did it taste? That kind of thing. It's a great exercise because kids are really will be more than happy to say, I don't like that, having never tried anything. So that's great. So with advance notice, really recommend doing that as well. And then this we can talk about where actually how food and how fruit and vegetables do grow, because some kids really don't know that potatoes grow in the ground and then other things grow above. So something like a pizza is a great way to identify that. So we can get into the tricky parts like the cheese, for example, or the pepperoni. Obviously doesn't grow, but what feeds the animal that produces that? So again, a great great activity to do. So really just a few ideas about activities that you can take indoors and take the garden indoors.
And now I want to talk about gardening for older students. And by older students, I mean middle school, high school, and students that have maybe been in a gardening programme for a long time and are quite proficient. The obvious one is to start a business or to form some kind of enterprise. And the pursuit of making money is incredibly attractive to that age group. And, there's many an idea and they come up with the best ones. Easy peasy, extra, growing plants and selling the produce, having a little farmer's market, lots of ideas there. But I would definitely recommend that. The second one is the use of technology and maybe looking at CAD, looking at garden design, landscape design, looking at the software that's out there for that. That I would definitely recommend that, and I've had a group of high school students that have done that, and that's really interesting. And that leads into looking at possible job opportunities and careers around the garden. The third one, is off-site visits and volunteering. Maybe there's not enough to do on your garden and your older students are able to take them off-site, which is great. So consider maybe going to the food bank garden or to other community gardens that would welcome you with open arms. So an off-site visit may be a great thing to do. And then the next one is harnessing that, that start of that social conscience, where they start to look at more of and get very kind of cross and really passionate about like local environmental issues or global environmental issues, the sustainability and food choice. So maybe consider looking at the garden and looking at the kind of the subject of gardening through that lens. Maybe look at it in a local level, take a trip to the landfill here, take a trip to the recycling centre, visit an urban farm and look at it from that point of view. Again, that works really well with that age group. The other one is houseplants. Now growing inside. This subject of horticulture, it's been quite overlooked, but it is on the rise with that age group. That age group of kids and younger adults, and houseplants is massive. So taking care and having house plants inside, it's year round. It's something that's incredibly gratifying to do actually in terms of well-being and mental health, and all the evidence is there. And that age group adore looking after houseplants as well. So they're quite often going to go into a dorm room. They're probably going to go into an apartment, or for a long time. It might be a while until they have their own house with some outdoor space. So giving them some confidence and some expertise and some skill with houseplants is great. And lastly, possibly consider an actual formal qualification, and something like the Junior Master Gardener programme could fit this bill. So something along those things to consider for older students. So now I've got 6 points that I'd like you to consider to do. And the first one is just to go for it. It's just to start your garden. Start small, grow with intention, okay? Be it a windowsill, be it a fence panel, or be it kind of, building beds, or just going for the full thing. Just go for it. The second one is to keep kids busy on the garden. It's just to make sure that there's plenty for everyone to do. Kids know exactly what is expected of them, or what's expected by the end of the session, and that there is actually plenty for each child to do. Keeping kids busy on the garden helps avoid any kind of discipline or behavioural issues. The third one is definitely have a team. It cannot be done by one person, and it certainly can't be done by one volunteer, and it certainly can't be done by one teacher. So definitely consider having an overall coordinator for this, and somebody who is preferably in a role. It always shows, there are statistics that show that somebody who is in a paid position, be it a stipend or a little salaried role to do this, the garden thrives. Otherwise, the average garden lasts about 2 years, I read recently. So definitely approach your administration, approach your PTA, and from the start, maybe having that overall coordinator role paid for, and one person that does all the liaising and is the coordinator for the overall programme. Last one is have a plan for the school's downtime, particularly the summer break, that you can liaise with people to volunteer for watering, just for weeding, coming in and picking produce, that kind of thing. And this is where having a paid for coordinator really comes in useful. Also, consider your volunteers. Your volunteers have needs too. Their time is indeed precious. It's precious to them, and it's indeed precious to you on the garden. So ask what their motivation for volunteering is. Maybe they want to get some more gardening expertise. Help them with that. Maybe they want some experience with teaching, so help them lead some garden sessions. Maybe they want to work particularly with their grandchild or their own child, so try to facilitate that. They need volunteering hours. Help them to get some meaningful meaningful volunteering done with you. And the last one is to reach out to your community and your community for support, the organisations, the businesses, the parents. Throw the net out and see what comes in, and I think you'll be incredibly surprised about what lovely people there are out there and what how generous people can be. And if they're not, it's time to get creative and make what you can from what you've got. But do reach out as far and wide as you can. Not only you, but get the kids to do it also. And lastly, I just want to talk about a few things to avoid and pitfalls. And the first one, the most important one, the one that I see way too much, is putting too much pressure and asking too much of the school's teaching staff or whomever it is in the school that is taking on this the garden project. And they just have so much on their plate. Just their regular jobs ordinarily is way too much. So adding this to it can really turn that enthusiasm to them wanting to head for the hills really quickly. And then that could be the end of the garden actually. So try not to do that. Try to kind of spread that out amongst some volunteers or a couple of different teaching staff. I would definitely try to do that. And the other one is making decisions and going ahead and doing things without the approval of the school administration. It's kind of frustrating having to wait for them to get back to you, but you have to do that. There's certain rules and regulations on campuses that is just beyond anybody's control, and you just have to wait for the authorization. And the last one is overlooking the input of the kids really and the children, and it's just so important that I emphasise that it is their space. That is their garden and it's their space. And of course you're going to have some idea about it, but really just let them run with their ideas as far as you can, because it really is a wonderful thing to watch them take ownership of that area, to put their heart and souls into it, and to garden it, and to care about it, and to worry about it, and to delight in it. And you see that building year on year, and as the older ones then start to mentor the younger ones, it is just a truly beautiful thing to see. So it's the kids' space, you let them go with it. So lastly, thank you so much for watching this presentation. As I said before, there is a list of local resources and national resources attached to this, which is next to how you access this presentation today. My contact details are here, so it's maryjo@madegreen.com, green with an E on the end, and I'd absolutely love to hear from you. So thank you again, and I hope to hear from you soon.